Welcome to Card Zone, episode 15. I'm your host, Sergio. I know it's been a while since since I've last done a podcast, and that's due to the fact that I've had some minor health issues. Mostly been dealing with back pain. I have arthritis in my spine and also spinal stenosis, and it's been pretty painful. But now we're back, and we'll continue to do these particular podcasts. And so, based on that, thank you very much. So, before I delve into today's episode, I want to address a particular sensitive topic that maybe we discuss during my episode about childhood sexual abuse. And CSA is a deeply distressing and traumatic experience that unfortunately affects many individuals globally. It involves any sexual inflicted upon a child by an adult or older children. Including but not limited to physical contact, exposure, and exploitation. This subject matter can evoke strong emotions and triggering distressing memories for survivors and listeners alike. My podcast is committed to raising awareness about important issues like CSA and providing a platform for constructive conversations. However, it is important to note that the discussions I have may unsettling or uncomfortable for some listeners. I encourage you to prioritize your emotional well-being while engaging with this content. If you are a survivor of CSA or someone you know is a survivor, please remember that help and support are available. Organizations such as the GATEHOUSE offers confidential support, resources, and guidance to survivors and their loved ones. Throughout our episode, I strive to approach this topic with sensitivity, empathy, and respect for survivors' experiences. I am to foster a supportive environment where survivors feel heard and validated. Thank you for tuning in and join me in this important conversation. Together, we can contribute to greater understanding and support for survivors of childhood sexual abuse. Now, childhood sexual abuse can profoundly impact a person's sense of self, relationships, and emotional well-being. One significant aspect of this impact is the feeling of abandonment. Now, here's how abandonment is connected to childhood sexual abuse. Betrayal by trusted figures. Children who experience sexual abuse often endure it at the hands of someone they trust, such as a family member, caregiver, or authority figure. This betrayal of trust can lead to feelings of abandonment because the abuser, who should have provided safety and care, instead of violated their trust and caused harm. Number 2, emotional abandonment. The trauma of sexual abuse can lead to profound emotional distress and instability. Children may feel abandoned emotionally because of their needs for safety, comfort, and protection were not met by the adults who were supposed to provide them. Number 3, impact on relationships. Survivors of childhood sexual abuse may struggle with forming and maintaining relationships. They may fear intimacy, have difficulty trusting others, or expect others to betray or abandon them. These difficulties can stem from the earlier betrayal and abandonment they experienced during the abuse. Number 4, self-blame and shame. Children who are abused often internalize feelings of guilt, shame, and worthlessness. They may blame themselves for the abuse or feel ashamed of what happened to them. These feelings can lead to a sense of being unworthy or unlovable, further exacerbating feelings of abandonment. Number 5, long-term effects. The effects of childhood sexual abuse can persist into adulthood. Survivors may continue to struggle with feelings of abandonment, even if they are no longer in contact with their abuser. They may feel disconnected from others or find it challenging to seek and accept support. Remember that understanding the connection between abandonment and childhood sexual abuse is crucial for providing effective support and therapy to survivors. Healing often involves addressing these deep-seated feelings of betrayal and abandonment, helping survivors rebuild trust in themselves and others, and developing healthier relationships. Next, I want to be able to talk about is the acknowledgement trauma, the consequences of family denial in childhood sexual abuse. I speak from firsthand experience in the sense of where the egg and the sperm donor refused to acknowledge that anything was done or even anything wrong was done. They don't want to acknowledge it. They don't even want to discuss it. It never happened. You're making it up. Oh, it's all in your mind. These are all the things that I came across. And unfortunately, it hurts. It's a form, again, of, not having your protection. Childhood sexual abuse is a devastating experience that can reverberate throughout a person's life, leaving lasting and emotional and psychological scars. For survivors, like myself, the trauma is compounded when their own family denies or refuses to acknowledge the abuse they endured. This denial not only invalidates their experiences, but also perpetuates a cycle of abandonment and emotional isolation. The journey of a survivor begins with the betrayal of trust, a foundation aspect shattered by the abuser, who should have provided safety and security. Instead, the abuser, often a family member or someone close, breaches that trust in the most profound and damaging way possible. For many survivors, the immediate aftermath is characterized by confusion, shame, and fear. They grapple with the dual burden of the abuse itself and the secrecy forced upon them by the perpetrator's threats or manipulation, like mine, who threatened my life if I even said a peep to anybody that he would kill me. In a healthy family dynamic, disclosure of such trauma would ideally lead to support, protection, and intervention. However, when a survivor must also contend with the family denial, the ramifications are severe. Denial from a family member can take various forms: outright refusal to believe the survivor's account, minimizing the seriousness of the abuse, or blaming the survivor for the disruption caused by speaking out. This denial serves to further isolate the survivors emotionally. It undermines their sense of reality and self-worth, often leading to profound feelings of abandonment. The very people who are supposed to provide unconditional love and support instead of withdrawal, leaving the survivor to navigate the aftermath of trauma alone. This abandonment can be as damaging, if not more so, than the initial abuse itself. Moreover, family denial perpetuates a culture of silence and secrecy around the abuse. It sends a message to the survivor that their pain is inconvenient or shameful, thereby compounding feelings of guilt and self-blame. Survivors may internalize these messages, believing that they are unworthy of support or that their experiences are somehow their fault. This internalized shame can have far-reaching consequences, affecting relationships, self-esteem, and overall well-being for years to come. Healing from childhood sexual abuse is a complex and arduous process that requires acknowledgement, validation, and support. When family members deny or ignore the abuse, they deny the survivors the opportunity to heal and recover. They deprive them of the crucial validation needed to rebuild trust in themselves and others. This denial can also perpetuate cycles of trauma within the family, affecting future generations and perpetuating patterns of dysfunction. It is essential, therefore, to recognize the profound impact of family denial in the context of childhood sexual abuse. By acknowledging the survivor's experiences and providing a supportive environment, families can play a crucial role in facilitating healing and breaking the cycle of silence and shame. Denial only perpetuates the harm caused by abuse, prolonging the survivor's suffering and delaying their path to recovery. In conclusion, the denial of childhood sexual abuse by family members is a betrayal of the deepest kind. It compounds the survivor's trauma, exacerbates feelings of abandonment, and perpetuates cycles of silence and shame. Addressing this denial is not only crucial for the individual survivor's healing, but also for fostering healthier family dynamics and preventing future instances of abuse. It is a call to action for families to confront uncomfortable truths, providing support and prioritize the well-being of their loved ones above all else. And this sort of goes with, the path, I guess, that I've led, in the sense of mothers who abandon their children due to the childhood sexual abuse. It's called understanding the complexities and impacts. The bond between a mother and a child is often considered one of the strongest and most nurturing relationships in human experience. However, when a mother abandons her child as a result of the child's experience of childhood sexual abuse, it unveils a complex interplay of trauma, societal pressures, and psychological distress. Childhood sexual abuse is a deeply traumatic experience that can have a profound and lasting effects on its victims. When a child discloses such abuse to their mother, one might expect unconditional support and protection. However, in some heartbreaking cases, mothers react in unexpected ways, including abandoning their child. This abandonment can take various forms, from physical abandonment to emotional withdrawal or neglect. Understanding why mothers may abandon their children in these circumstances requires delving into several complex factors. Firstly, mothers themselves may have experienced trauma or abuse in their own lives, which can impact their ability to cope with and respond to their child's disclosure. Unresolved trauma can manifest as emotional numbness, avoidance of difficult emotions, or an inability to provide that necessary support to their child. Secondly, societal stigma and shame surrounding sexual abuse can influence a mother's response. There may be fear of judgment from others, concern about the family's reputation, or a desire to protect the perpetrator, who may be a family member or a close acquaintance. These pressures can lead to denial, or minimization of the abuse, thereby invalidating the child's experience and exacerbating feelings of abandonment. Thirdly, psychological factors such as guilt, helplessness, or feelings of inadequacy may contribute to a mother's decision to abandon her child. She may blame herself for not protecting her child, feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of the situation, or struggle with her own sense of identity and role as a mother. The impact of maternal abandonment on a child who has already experienced CSA is devastating. It deepens the trauma, reinforcing feelings of betrayal, rejection, and unworthiness. The child may internalize the abandonment as a reflection of their own inadequacy or undesirability, further complicating their emotional and psychological recovery. In some cases, maternal abandonment can lead to long-term consequences for the child's development and well-being. It may affect their ability to form trusting relationships, regulate emotions, and navigate future challenges in life. The absence of a maternal figure can leave a void that is difficult to fill, impacting their sense of identity and belonging. Addressing the issue of maternal abandonment in the context of CSA requires a compassionate and nuanced approach. It involves recognizing the complexity of trauma, providing support and resources to both the child and the mother, and fostering a supportive environment for healing and recovery. For society, it is essential to break the silence and stigma surrounding CSA, providing education, awareness, and resources to support survivors and their family. By promoting understanding and empathy, we can work towards creating a more compassionate and supportive community where survivors of childhood sexual abuse and their families can heal and thrive. In conclusion, the phenomenon of mothers abandoning their children due to childhood sexual abuse highlights the profound impact of trauma on family relationships. It underscores the urgent need for greater awareness, support, and resources to address the complexities of CSA and its ripple effects on families. By fostering understanding and empathy, we can create a safer and more supportive environment for survivors and their families to heal and rebuild their lives. I also want to touch upon, because I've recently run across a few things and certain statements that I've come across. So I basically picked out, my top 10 of statements that you should never, ever say to someone who is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. Number one for me is, it happened so long ago. Why are you still upset about it? Seriously? Obviously, this is somebody who doesn't understand what childhood sexual abuse is, the trauma that goes with it, the shame that goes with it, the guilt that goes with it, the anger that instills, and you can say that it boils and just keeps boiling over time. And to a certain extent, you're so angry at times, at least at the beginning, that when I say at the beginning is because, when I say us, I meant survivors of childhood sexual abuse. We tend to be in different stages when it comes to CSA. So at the beginning, you're going to be extremely angry and at the same time, extremely emotional. You're basically on your own. You don't trust anybody. And at the same time, because you're suffering from major depression, you don't want to talk about it. You're just saying, hey, I'm okay. That is a huge topic. Number two, Are you sure it wasn't just a misunderstanding or something that you imagined? As you all know, if you've heard all my podcasts, especially number 3, I I had my egg say this to me, that I misunderstood or I imagined it. No, I did not imagine it. No, I did not misunderstand. And this person violated me, took away my childhood, took away my innocence, took away my enjoyment as being as a kid, and put me in a category where, in order to no longer feel pain or the shame and the guilt that I had, I basically went into doing drugs and drinking alcohol, lots of it. As a 12-year-old boy, smoking, doing drugs, and alcohol, not a good mix. And for all intent and purposes, according to my therapist, I should be an alcoholic or some sort of druggist or some sort of drug person or being homeless because of the severe trauma that I experienced in the toxic so-called family environment that I grew up in. The next one, number 3, is you should try to forget about it and move on. I got this from, I don't want to say the name, but it was a brother, so-called brother, who basically, those are the exact words he said to me. You should try to forget about it and move on. As I asked that person, how do you do that? Your brain is a memory. It keeps everything inside. So how do you forget about it and move on? You don't. Anybody who has experienced the trauma of CSA, physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, and any other forms of abuse that I've not said, can't forget about it. We can't move on. So it's, especially from being a survivor of CSA, this is something that I have to live with for the rest of my life, or as long as I'm on this earth. And I have to deal with it. I have to cope with it. It is not where, hey, how you feeling today? I'm always I'm okay. I'm doing all right. But, am I really? No. I'm battling inside demons. And the demons, you don't want to hear what they're saying. I've always said I wouldn't want my worst enemy to live a minute of my life and what I go through mentally. That's how bad it is. But I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. The next one I've heard from people, especially from females, that this is what is said to them. What were you wearing? Did you do anything to provoke it? No one. No one. It doesn't matter what you're wearing, what you look like. No one deserves to be abused, sexually abused, just based on what somebody's wearing. So what? It doesn't matter. If your head is on straight, this stuff wouldn't matter. And no one deserves, just because even if you are wearing a mini skirt, or a little boy is wearing short shorts and you can see his ass cheek or whatever, no one deserves it. There's no such thing. As far as what a person wears, no one provokes it. The person wore what they wore because that's what made them feel good. At the end of the day, no one has any right to abuse you based on what you're wearing. That is that other person's fault, not the person who was wearing the clothes. And that is a topic where I get bothered by it, because what one person wears has nothing to do with being sexually abused. It really doesn't. Number 5, it's time to forgive and forget. Well, I've always said that I wasn't put on this earth to forgive, and I can't forget. As I explained to somebody that this particular, childhood sexual abuse, it is a scar, and is a deep scar in my heart. And, when someone looks into my heart, they see that wound, and they're going to hear that wound. And I'm going to describe that wound. But that's something that I'll never forget. As an example, I have many scars around my body because of sports. Well, guess what? Every time I see those scars, I can tell you exactly what happened, where I was, the time of day, and what sport I was playing. It's the same thing when it comes to being abused or being a CSA. You can't forgive. I don't know how to forgive, and I certainly don't know how to forget. Number 6, why didn't you tell anyone sooner? Gee, when somebody threatens your life that they're going to kill you, as a 12-year-old boy, 11-year-old boy, I kept my mouth shut. I was maybe, 4 feet tall compared to the sperm donor, who was at the time probably 6'1" and weighed about 300 pounds. And he had hands like sausages. He was brutal. He wasn't a friendly person. At least I never saw it. And the first person I told was my family physician back many years ago. I was probably about 35, 36 years old. And the reason I spoke up was because I was having health issues. I didn't know what was going on, but I know that these voices and all this nervousness and blurred vision, high blood pressure, having stomach issues. Literally thought I had an ulcer back then, because it didn't matter what I ate, it turned into, a huge pit of vinegar, as I call it. And I was basically pissing vinegar at the same time. So, it's not as easy as people think it is. Why didn't you tell somebody? Really? The person that said that to me, and pardon my French, I told him to go fuck himself. Because obviously, once again, somebody just doesn't understand. Number 7, but they're family. You should try to maintain a relationship with them. Fuck no. There's no way. When it comes to, it's the saying goes, you can't pick your family. You can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. Wrong answer, but thanks for playing. And I'm sorry, but I don't believe in that. I've picked my own friends and I've picked my own family. As far as my blood family, I've disowned them. I have no way. I have no contact with them. I've blocked everybody. I don't want to have any form of relationship with these people because they're toxic. They are just poison. It's beyond toxic. They're negative. One of them has the why me syndrome. Why is always everything happening to me? Well, if you spoke up and talked about what's really going on in your head, maybe you might get some clarity. Maybe there will be an upturn instead of being negative to a positive. The next one is, it really bothers me. It irks me. It's insensitive to when people say this. And number 8 is, it's not like it was rape, so it wasn't that bad, right? No, it is a form of rape. When somebody is violating you or your space without your consent, it is rape. The other one is, it is not sex either. So when somebody says it wasn't that bad, again, this is coming from somebody who has no clue as far as what is abuse, childhood sexual abuse, or even being raped, as a matter of fact. These people are just clueless. They have no common sense, and there's no empathy to them. Number 9, you're exaggerating. It could have been that dramatic. It couldn't have been that dramatic? Really? When somebody violates you, sexually abuses you, physically abuses you? Oh, yes, I must have been exaggerating. Yes. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Not. It couldn't have been that traumatic, right? This is the same person who, once again, people that have no clue as to the what trauma is and the issues that go with it. This is the person that is saying, "Oh, you're exaggerating. Can't be that bad." And the last one is, you're overreacting. Other people have it worse. Well, as far as that comparison goes, I'm not sure. I don't want to compare, have it worse in the sense of maybe having cancer. Yeah, I would say having cancer, maybe. I don't know. That's two different roads. One is not comparable to the other. Both are extremely bad. And the person who says this, you're overreacting, once again, no common sense. They have no clue what's going on in the world, because this is obviously somebody who just doesn't understand what abuse is, whether it be physical or sexual or verbal. They have no clue. They live in their own little world, and in their own little world, everything is perfect. No one gets abused. No one gets smacked. No one has cancer. No one has anything. No one got COVID either, by the way, by this person. Like, come on. Let's be realistic. These statements, they can be very dismissive, invalidating, blaming, or minimizing of the survivor's experience. They can exacerbate feelings of guilt, shame, and self-blame, and hinder the survivor's healing and process. It's crucial to approach a survivor with empathy, validation, and support, and to avoid making assumptions or judgment about their experience. Well, it's been fun. I've actually liked talking about this. And the last thing I want to say is that when you're making, if any of you think twice about making certain statements to a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, just take 30 seconds to think about what you're going to say or going to ask. Because at the end of the day, that survivor will either get immediately angry, immediately emotional, and depending where they are or what they're feeling or what they're going through that day, you may push them to the brink of suicide. So think about that when it comes to making some stupid and foolish statements. Seriously. Life is hard as it is. And I'm not even factoring into the fact that people get abused physically, emotionally, sexually, and any other verbally, and any other forms of abuse, because there are tons of forms of abuse. Just think. Anyway, it's been fun. It's been great. Thank you for all of you for listening. Going forward, we'll continue to do weekly And I'm actually considering maybe doing not just audio, but doing video. I have to clean things up around here, but have a nice little background. But anyway, maybe that first video, I'll have a guest. I think it's time. So thank you once again. And remember that if you do know somebody who is a survivor, be understanding, be supportive, and take care.